I know you're probably wondering, Brad, why in the hell would you even go and watch this film? And the simple answer is because of you guys. I want to give you a great review of a interesting film that you know is going to be a good one, especially if Angry Brad shows up. So let's just see what happens in the review. Welcome back, film fans. This is Let's Be Real with Brad. Today we're going to be talking about the most anticipated animated movie of the entire summer, and that's The Boss Baby Back in Business. It is a sequel to the 2017 smash hit The Boss Baby, spanning with all these other animated shorts and a Netflix TV show. This thing has been a massive franchise. So before I get into the review, I have to say this for every single animated film or family movie that I particularly don't like, and say that if you love this film and you had an absolute blast with it, then don't dislike my video just because I didn't like the film as you did. So now that they've made a sequel to this movie, it is pretty clear and obvious that they did not think that original film would be as big of a hit as it is, because that movie feels so one note and opening itself to maybe having a sequel, and it just does because, well, the first one was so big. So this movie is so goddamn lazy because of the simple fact that this movie doesn't even try to distinguish itself from the first one or any other good animated films. So let's dive right into my clear negatives of this movie. And as I was talking about earlier, we're going to start with the laziness. This movie follows beat for beat of the first film and its structure by changing some of the things that we saw in the first movie. But if you broke down this structure of the film, it is so formulaic, lazy, cheap, as they were just filling the holes of what they should do as an animated film to check off all the right things that it needs of emotion, the humor, the worse humor, and basically being almost the same movie with some different characters and then different villains. I know a lot of people probably won't recognize this while watching because people just write it off as a simple dumb kids movie, which, you know, I get, but I also think that this movie could have been somewhat watchable and it could have been funny, and this movie doesn't do that, which leads into my next negative is with the writing. As much as the writing is super lazy in its structure and its story, this movie is also increasingly horrible in its humor. I found this movie to be so ridiculously unfunny, with almost probably only one joke that actually made me chuckle a little bit, but all the jokes feel so forced and unnatural, and it just feels like it's playing to the babies that are watching this movie. My next negative with this movie is the animation. I cannot stand the animation of these two films. For me, I think it is so ridiculously bad with terrible character design. I absolutely hate the color palette. To me, it looks so ridiculously cheap, and it just looks like they can just make so much money off this in the most illumination way possible. My third negative is the pacing. This movie drags for so long trying to fill all the check marks that you need in these animated kind of films. But the one thing that I found very weird is that this movie is kind of long for a typical animated kids film. Normally they're about an hour and 30 minutes, but this movie stretches that, and I don't think it was quite necessary when your movie is just about a boss baby trying to stop this bad guy from making these boss babies run the world. For most of this movie, I found it to be completely boring and so uninteresting, and that also is due to the writing and the animation, but I also feel like a movie as a whole just is not going to wrap me in it just because of the concept itself is just so underutilized. So we're going to talk about some of the positives this movie has, and the first one being the voice acting. I do like Alec Baldwin as this boss baby, as I do think the concept is a tiny bit funny, like this boss baby and he sounds like Alec Baldwin. Like, it is funny, but you also have Jeff Goldblum, who pretty much plays a more exaggerated version of himself as the villain of the film, and I thought he had the best moments in the movie. It was almost like the film just let him ad-libbed and improvise every single line, because all the other dialogue in this movie feels so hammered, crammed into this studio-made film, and then Jeff Goldblum just comes alive, and as I almost wish he was in most of the movie. My second positive with this movie is that it is very bland and generic, and it has some heartfelt moments that I think a lot of people will enjoy. This positive almost makes this movie a lot better than something like Spirit Untamed, because at least it's just following a checklist of what made the first one so successful, even though this is not a good film by any means. I also think that some of the heartfelt moments in this movie were trying to be manipulative and trying to pull at the heartstrings of the kids and parents that are watching this film, and I think for some people it's going to be able to affect that. I didn't think it was one of the worst things in the entire world, as I probably enjoyed those moments the most out of any other part in the film. So overall, I don't really have that much to say about this movie because it's the Boss Baby sequel. I'm going to be giving the Boss Baby Back in Business a 4 out of 10. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you want to, and ring that notification bell so I never get to miss you in a new video.